like to welcome Paul Vilevac as my guest today. Paul, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Andre. It's a pleasure to get to sit down with you again.
Yes, no, it's really great. I haven't seen Paul in a long, long time, so it's a great pleasure to see him, especially on this topic that is more his topic than mine when it comes to high tech. But I thought that it was time to address this issue a little bit today. So we're going to have about 30 minutes together. I have seen some participants coming from all over the world here today. I mean, I saw some people in Argentina, a few. I don't know if you know each other in Argentina. So if you don't, it's a coincidence. And it was really dominant when I saw the list. And then a few people, it's very early for them in the morning in Vietnam and in Singapore. I love to start with that because it's exciting. You've got people all over the world. And then you've got, of course, the major part in the New York area on the Eastern Standard Time, as well as Canada. I saw some people also in the West Coast, like Paul is, and also a few in France, obviously, right? So I wanted to mention that. Also, please, again, register on the YouTube channel for those who are watching the YouTube channel. We are on multiple channels this evening, and we also have a podcast. It's recording, so it will be available on my profile on LinkedIn and all the other places. It's also a podcast on Spotify and on Anchor. And all of that saying that really it's a good idea to register on YouTube for two reasons. One is it encourages us to continue and to, you know, find fantastic guests and topics and really work harder. Secondly, it makes it also exciting for you because we are more people, so we can share more ideas. You have here a chat space on the right side of us where we cannot reply to you, but you can definitely make comments or ask questions. And if we have a multiple task talent, we can also look at that and at the same time answer. Otherwise, we'll answer to you a little later. Okay, so let's dive into this incredible topic. So maybe if I may ask you, Paul, to a few words of introduction to tell us a little bit where you stand today, because I haven't seen you again, as I said, in a long time.
Sure. Um, Primary focus right now is working for a company named Sentinel One.
Yes.
Love the company, love what they do. It's cybersecurity using machine learning, AI, and really becoming a platform company who is building truly innovative technology that services our customers and helping them operate within their risk appetite, helping them service their customers. And it's just a lovely group of people to work with, just phenomenal leadership. Um, Really a space near and dear to my heart, having grown up the way I did and having participated so much in cybersecurity over the past 30 years. Just so happy to be here. Also, in advising a tremendous startup named Rapid Ascent, where we were really focusing on creating opportunities for uh, the BPOC or under under underrepresented communities, and by providing them an environment to learn and to gain skills and to move into cybersecurity as a career path in a way that
Cool.
doesn't cost them anything
Mhm.
and which is designed around real life scenarios and which is meant not to be punitive but to be iterative and informative and engaging. And um, they're doing a tremendous job, and it's been great to watch them reach out to communities that I'm involved in, whether it's the LGBTQ community, veterans, and just providing an opportunity for people to move up in their economic opportunities, as I did growing up in a small town in Ohio, to where I've become. And those two things are kind of my passion at the moment, my job and the team I work with, and the organizations I work with and embrace.
Well, that's the impact you had on me a long time ago, Paul. That you do things that you like and you are passionate about, and what you just said about the future of cybersecurity as a career,
Mhm.
as skills that people can develop, obviously is very obviously a very opportunity. It's a great opportunity. In other words, I'm thinking of it right now in my mind. That's why I'm not talking straight because I'm a little bit emotional about this. There's a few people that had really a breakthrough, an epiphany
Mhm.
by seeing that it was a good area for them. They had a little bit
Mhm.
of an engineering mindset, but definitely motivation to. And that's a little bit the discussion I would like to have with you today of
Mhm.
how the true is, how, and we have to be truthful and not biased here. about how really true it is that we can be secure, we can still feel safe in that space. So I remember you were pretty skeptical at one point in time as an expert. You in fact
Mhm.
scared me. You don't even know. You said something about that it will never be in fact safe anymore. Didn't you say that to me?
Probably something along the lines of there's no true security. Like it's just impossible.
Right.
And
Impossible.
I count among my many friends. I was thinking today about how much I miss so many people and how how my entire career has benefited. The opportunity that I'm most grateful for is all the people that I've met along my journey and the ones who I've befriended and who I've stuck with. But I think it was Bob Metcalf, but it may have been another gentleman who was like, he's like, I don't know. I asked him in my naivete when I was building a startup, like,
Yeah.
can we create truly secure communication? And his first thing he challenged me as, how do you define truly secure? And at the end of the day, with all the expertise I developed and all the work I had done in cryptography and so many other aspects, I came to realize that there isn't anything truly secure. And so it is all we can do is make it more expensive for the attackers. Basically, it's just simple economics. If you can make it more difficult and more expensive for other people to
Yes.
attack your business, to attack your firm, to attack your identity, um, it becomes unreasonable for them to continue doing so. But yes,
So what? How do you do that? How do you make it more expensive?
uh, first and foremost, I think businesses need to understand. At Nike, I had a tremendous opportunity to work with the CISO, just a brilliant guy named Ryan Fusselman and the team there. And we rewrote the vision for the organization because a lot of people think of cybersecurity as like a technology controls, and they get very technical and they get very much about like policy enforcement, about, oh, we're going to be the cops who are going to, control everything. It's not really how it works at all. In fact, the problem with that model is it tends to transfer the accountability to the information security organization and your CISO when they don't get to make the technical decisions for the business, right? The technical decisions are made far outside their realm. The business needs to make technical decisions. The job of the security organization in a business is to help the technologists make good decisions, right? It's by informing them of their risk. It's by providing them with an understanding of how their decisions could create liabilities for the company, and then working with them to make good decisions about what they can do to mitigate or to reduce the risk, and then provide all those other things that security teams are good at or specialized at, right? The security operations center, the incident detection and response. But really, it's to help the business operate in the risk appetite state, and to do that by helping inform them about where they're at, what they're doing, what they could do better, what maybe they can't get around doing because it's just would be cost prohibitive. And that's when you put in other things like security controls to monitor for things and alert on it.
Right.
um, but it's just a very different world in which we're operating in. But I think a good, smart set of controls, a good, thoughtful organization, a good, meaningful conversation at the start of any technology project or endeavor, or even just a revisit to it periodically, helps drive that direction to make sure that you've got the right tooling and solutions in place. I love Sentinel-1. I actually hated Sentinel-1 when I would come across it when I was paid to be a penetration tester,
Right.
because as somebody who has done some pretty entertaining things in my life and my career,
Yes.
um, Sentinel-1 was one of those things where when I ran into it, I knew that it would be incredibly difficult for me to bypass or to get around or to do the things that I was being paid to do as a
Right.
penetration tester. So, if you can't beat them, join them, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. Any
So,
background of being a hacker yourself, or
yeah, I mean, on and off. I mean, I was never. I've I have friends who truly were hackers. The second most wanted man on the planet back in the 90s was a hacker named Mercury, good guy, good friend of mine. I won't reveal his name because
yes, sure, not
he
no.
may not want to associate with it anymore. But I think back in the mid 90s when we were all learning about computers and learning about security and kind of inventing the industry because we were all curious and we'd all go get into things and we'd go, compete with one another. And it wasn't malicious.
No.
We weren't looking, the vast majority of us weren't looking to do things that were impacting a business from a cost perspective, but there were people among our peers who were. Um,
Okay.
Probably the biggest, most interesting thing I've done in that space is I was invited by a federal agency during a Defense Threat Reduction Agency 3-day event in Livermore Lab and Treasure Island and other places to come act as the red team. And then um, uh, let's just say that before they served lunch, I was told to stop.
All right.
So,
Yeah, I can
um,
imagine that. Yeah.
but yeah, it's
No, that's very. You see, we with Paul, we get immediately into the topic. I really love it what you said, and the truth is, again, I go back to this point that you made because you are consulting with this company. I want to really commend you and this company for going after, of course, underserved communities, but offering opportunities for people to train and gain skills to
mhm,
become productive, to become useful to organizations so that they are safer or can
mhm,
understand more. Because when I listen to you and everybody listens to you, it's interesting. We see a little bit how you think. We see a little bit your vision here, the way you process this idea. It has nothing to do with what I thought. It's not technical. When you're talking about people, you're talking about organizations, you're talking about business decisions, you're talking about the role, in fact, of those cyber experts who leave for themselves their technical expertise and use their whiteboard or blackboard in their office to write the formulas and the coding. But then when they talk with the stakeholders, they talk their language and they are
mhm,
interested in the well-being of people and of the organization, which is really the topic I'm dealing with every day myself as a coach, or even
mhm,
sometimes as a mediator when there is conflicts. But it's definitely about the well-being and how technology impacts. And the thing is interesting. Why did I come up with this title for today? High tech or no high tech is because maybe there's sometimes also that need. I personally need it. It's not only the social need to be in contact with people face
mhm,
to face in the same room physically, but it's also about and the social skills, but it's also about touching. In the virtual world, we don't touch nothing. For me, I go by an artist and I can touch a sculpture. I can
mhm,
touch wood. I can touch material. I love craftsmanship. I love those people who are working on the details of a watch or
mhm.
of a diamond, right? And cutting the diamond in thin layers. This is something that technology do not. I mean, we can use a robot or artificial intelligence, but we still have to be very agile and
Mhm.
expert in what we do. So sorry, I don't
No, please.
more, but this is what you bringing also as an inspiration. So in this topic, I had also in mind to, in fact, ask you a few questions. And look, there is definitely, I feel that way, a lack of freedom because we become so dependent on high tech. I
Mhm,
mean, driving a Tesla car or another electric car and being dependent on, they are in fact computers on wheels, right?
mhm,
Being on my computer, my phone, and the dependency is multiple. The subconscious, the subconscious being slave of it to some
mhm.
extent, and the rest. So I wanted to have your point of view. How can we keep some privacy and security has to do also with freedom. I
Yeah,
need to be a free person, and I just don't. I feel every day more and more control. Um,
absolutely. I struggle with that as well. I mean, the idea of a subscription for my automobile is frustrating, and it's I don't know that there's a great answer. I think that we as consumers need to hold the companies we choose to do business with accountable, and we as a business organization, need to be respectful of the rights and privacy of our customers. And I think that language has evolved a lot over the past decade. I think what we're seeing with the introduction of privacy legislation, both at
yeah,
the state level and at the nation level, at the regional level, I think are a good start for that. I do think that there needs to be greater emphasis on consumer protections globally.
right.
I think it's something we as consumers need to advocate for,
Mhm.
because it is it is offensive when you feel as though you are being taken advantage of in any situation, particularly as a consumer. It makes me infuriated personally, and part of the reasons why I still hack things is because I refuse to allow companies to jeopardize or compromise my privacy or rights. And that's another fun aspect of cybersecurity, and it's the reason why, you know, maybe it's a little anarchist, but the reality is it's the need for privacy and the right of the individual. And I think that in some regards, the hacking community and their ethos of no, we have the right to repair our own equipment. No, we have the right to modify it as we see fit. We have the right not to be in a situation where because we disagree or rejected something, we lose the rights or access to whatever we've purchased. One of the reasons why, one of the places where I am really frustrated that NFTs failed so miserably, and where I think blockchain has a huge potential benefit, is in
Yeah.
the creation of the truest form of digital ownership. There's a great book called The Mystery of Capital
Right.
by a economist named Hernando de Soto out of, I think, Argentina or
Yes.
Peru. But the brilliance of the book is it really emphasizes that in order to capitalize things, you actually need to own things. And the reality is most of the digital things that we acquire and the subscriptions we acquire and all the other things that we
Yeah.
spend money on, you
Hmm.
don't own. And I honestly believe that if your software, if your book purchases, if your digital media acquisitions were treated as NFTs and were actually transferred to you and you own them, then you could transfer them to someone else. And it's a win-win, right? The consumer gets the right to be able to potentially own digital assets
Yeah.
that are actually treated as true assets, and they could capitalize on them if they wish to. They could bequeath them to their children. They could resell them if they chose to do so. Um, at the same time, you could potentially limit reselling. I mean, the smart contracts can do that. But at the end of the day, we spend so much of our income on things that are ephemeral and that we have no actual ownership in.
So
And
yeah,
NFTs could solve that, but nobody is embracing it. And those who did embrace it destroy destroyed any credibility potentially available in that
yes,
market. And
yes.
as you look forward, I mean, your property ownership could become an NFT, and you could transfer and shift that to another owner. It would make things like being able to acquire property internationally far more seamless and consistent. And you'd have a blockchain-based record that ameliorates the risk we consumers have in having our ownership information being held digitally by a third party that could go out of business or could
But
evaporate or could go away.
so those who don't know much about blockchain and all of that, it's just remove a lot of agents and intermediaries to gain more the ownership of what you're saying, right? If I understand it well.
Yeah, it's a public ledger
Like,
in which
right.
all records are recorded.
Yes.
They are digitally protected and they're immutable. They
Okay.
cannot be reversed and they can always be validated.
All right.
And so NFTs are just a variation on the theme of a blockchain in which NFT is a non-fungible token. It is a unique indicator or identifier of something.
Yes. Yes.
It it can be exchanged for good. Typically, there's a translation between like this NFT has a value.
Yes.
Could be US dollars, could be Ethereum, but it represents it could be a physical good or a digital good. And but there is a transfer of ownership that usually infers some other downstream access to a subscription or a book or material or
Yes.
whatever
That comes
that
along.
is held in a public ledger. And so you could transfer it, you could capitalize on it, you could resell, you could do so many things, and it could really create a digital economy that we've been promised for decades but hasn't truly materialized. And I think if there's one thing that will help us regain our freedom, regain our control as consumers, is an actual effective embracing of blockchain technologies and a digital economy, because it will radically alter the engagement and interaction and ownership and rights between a consumer and the companies that they interact with.
So you seem to have an optimistic point of view here. So who can make that happen?
It's happening slowly. I think there's a bit of evolution there. I did get to engage in a little bit of a NFT project when I was at Nike.
Yes.
Um, I had a startup in the past, SecureSend, you had a photo of me, which was about identity proofing and secure communication. And been rewriting a considerable portion of the identity validation and proofing model to leverage blockchain technology. So there's a
Okay.
lot of opportunities there, and there's a lot of um, there are some really great firms out there doing some really interesting, intriguing, and innovative activities. I think, as with many things, the lack of regulation, which breeds innovation and opportunity, created opportunity for those with malicious intent or
Yeah.
selfish intent to take advantage of the situation. But we see that often. I mean, we see that with so many other worlds, right? eBay was fantastic, and then there's abusers on it. Amazon's great, but you still end up buying products that you end up with, not exactly what you thought you purchased. It will get better, I think, and I think there's opportunities when we see. What I'm looking forward to is when one company, somebody significant, whether it's a software company or an ebook company or somebody who embraces the blockchain and the public and NFTs and the rest, and embraces the perspective that you can own a digital good and truly own it as a consumer, and not just license the right to use it until such time as the provider suspends it for no apparent reason.
I take that as a mindset for the consumer
Mhm.
to look for this kind of value, to look for this kind of ownership, because
Mhm.
this is going to keep them. That's a good answer for the freedom concern I had, and remove the paranoia, right, that
Mhm.
we live in every single day, by not writing something, by not attaching a document in an email, by
Right.
it's really, really, really difficult to function, these days. There's one question someone is asking, so I'm going to read it as it comes. Is, do you think we will respect the point where even crown jewels are more expensive to protect than it's worth?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the idea, crown jewels being like the critical intellectual property or the most valuable data in an organization, right? The things, or the physical crown jewels or a digital crown jewels, right? It could be a token or an NFT, a digital representation on a blockchain somewhere. Um,
Yeah.
where the expense of protecting it, no, I honestly, I don't think, I think we can evolve to the point where the controls and protections and elements we have in place are uh, cost effective from the perspective if they make it so difficult for the attacker to be successful in acquiring
Yes.
those those things that they give up before they accomplish it without it being an excessive burden, financial burden to the company to operate. Like,
Right.
it's just like with everything else. There's a uh, in the insurance industry, there's what's called exceedance probability curves, and so you have to do this math that says, what is the probability that this bad thing will happen? What will be the impact of that bad thing? And how much will it cost when that bad thing happens? And what does it cost for us to make sure that bad thing doesn't happen? And
Right.
there's a great book called Factor Analysis for Information Risk. Absolutely love it. And it just helps with people making those sort of rational risk-based decisions in cybersecurity, but in the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
It's just, how do you make informed risk-based decisions? Because we all live, like, there's a risk to everything we do, right? There's a
Yes.
risk that I could say something here that upsets somebody, and or I anger a
Possibly.
hacker friend of mine. And he spends the next 20 years going after my career. Like, things happen, but we all have to operate in a way in which
So,
we
I
don't have
want,
to live in an anxious life, right? That's the biggest thing. That's the one thing that kills me, is there's so much anxiety. We all live with so much anxiety anymore, and I think having demystifying technology, demystifying information security, demystifying the risks we operate in, clarifying the rights of the consumer, making people feel like they're making good decisions,
right.
will make the world a better place, because we won't be all living in this paranoid, anxious way in which we all feel like we need to operate.
Yeah, so we are in a transition. Let's put
Mhm.
it this way: there is a crisis about this, because it's a little bit transitionary. We're
Mhm.
not there yet, and all kind of other threats and AI, where people really don't understand much what's going on. But the real question I'm asking, because we have only it's a very short 30 minutes together, but I'm thinking about people's lives. I'm thinking about the home. I'm thinking about the kids,
Mhm.
and that's also where I would like to ask your view, how to think about that, maybe about work-life balance also. So
Mhm.
all this combination of things, again, with the influence of high tech and how the consumer thinks.
Absolutely. I have two amazing children. Well, they're not children anymore. They're both in their 20s. They grew up in my household, which is a household full of technology, right? There's pieces of projects everywhere. I'm always taking things apart, and they've grown up in that space. And what's really been fascinating to watch is how very, very differently they approach the world in a lot of ways. Downside, there's not as much direct human social interaction, like public, like going out and having a meal together. Like they don't do that necessarily a lot. They get together and have parties with their friends periodically. But the flip side of it is they're constantly connected and they're always engaging with people when they want to be engaged. They're always online and talking to their friends. They have friends that are spread globally. And whether they're playing a game together or they're watching a movie together, they're actually, even though it's digital, they're actually far more social than I was at their age because they've got an opportunity to engage with people of like mind, like interests,
Yeah.
and to be maybe less um, limited by locality, right? The other thing that's really fascinating is how amazingly good children growing up with technology are about about recognizing disingenuity, if that's
Right.
the proper word. Like they like I find that sometimes when I watch something or there's something on YouTube or whatever, I can't tell if it's, you know, an individual who is just being a person doing their thing, or if it's somebody who's like, it's scripted and it's regulated and there's like a marketing team behind it and there's all these other things
Oh,
that are commercializing whatever it is and trying to market it as being the genuine
yes.
item. My offspring, my adult children,
Yeah, yeah.
are incredibly sharp at being able to see. Like they could
Yeah,
watch
they
two
see the
different.
they really differentiate that.
They can with absolute, without any ambiguity, with just absolute clarity to see like, oh, this, yeah, we don't watch this streamer over here because it's all bogus and it's just marketed fluff, and this guy over here is a genuine human being who's actually engaging with the rest.
How do you
It,
explain that? I'm sorry, I would like to. How do you explain that they are conscious about this?
I think they grew up with a you know people of my generation tend to be a bit more cynical and sarcastic. And I think the side effect of that cynicism and sarcasm on our children
Yeah.
is they get better at differentiating between cynicism and sarcasm and genuine
Okay.
interaction.
Okay.
And I think in the digital world, and especially given that they've grown up in the world where reality TV is around and all these things are being marketed to them all the time, there's something about the genuine human interaction that they have and the reinforcement they get from their community of friends and peers that they're always interacting with that helps them build that kind of muscle of detecting, the BS meter, right? They're really good at it, and it's shocking. And I really like. I think a lot about how the sort of people and opportunities they're looking for, and the things I grew up with. Like I'm truly blessed that I live in a beautiful part of Portland, Oregon. I have a
Right.
nice house. I have exceeded all expectations for the people who grew up where I did, right? The economic environment that I grew up in. And had I stayed in that town, I would never have accomplished what I have in my life.
Okay.
Um, but I always had I'm going to get married and have kids and they're going to university. And like I had this, a full lifetime plan. And I don't know how much of that was genuinely what I had wanted, or like how did I develop the
Yeah. What
decision
was the
around that?
influence over there?
But I can say that I'm so glad to have been a father and to engage with all the things that have come with that. But I look at where my offspring are and what they're thinking about their career and their life, and like their values and their hopes and concerns and anxieties are so different now. Like I don't know that they really care about having a career where someday they'll found a company and build a multi-million-dollar franchise. I don't know how much they even care about like having a job that pays more than enough. Like, and I think that they have just a natural recognition of the need for a life work balance. And having spent 20 years of my life in Silicon Valley doing startups, driving 3 hours a day
Oh yeah,
to and
you
from
were.
work and all the rest of it, I sacrificed a lot of the life work balance, and I sacrificed a lot of the relationship I had with my kids when they were young, particularly because of not embracing a life work balance. And
Absolutely.
maybe it's a little too late for me. I often
No.
joke not with the
Wow.
people I work with now, because like my kids are adults now. I have nothing else to do but work, and like I really don't have any hobbies other than technology. So like what else am I going to do with myself? But
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
my kids have a very different perspective about it all, and it's just been fascinating to watch as they become adults and as they transition to the next phase of their lives. I think they part of it is the cynicism. They don't necessarily have the opportunities that I enjoyed. I mean, I grew up at the start of the computer industry, and my
Yes.
opportunities grew with it. But I think we're also seeing a lot of changes to the economic situation in the U.S., and I think they've grown a bit cynical. And but the reality is maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe they've got a better perspective. Maybe their desire to have better work-life balance and to work to live, not live to work, is
Right.
is the right way that we should be going about it. And they've inspired me a little bit to take a step back and not spend so much time in the house on my computer or in my head designing the next great thing, and actually, you know,
Yeah. Refreshing.
embrace embrace the rest.
The word is really we could have called this little time together as a refreshing time, because you refreshed a lot of things by your positive look of things, and your background being really pretty high tech oriented and futuristic. So your perspective has been extremely interesting to listen to and watch you talking about it with passion. I would like to make it a first of a series, if you accept my invitation to come back, because I think there's much more. I had much more questions to ask.
Okay.
But let's say a month or two from now to come back and make a second a second shot on expanding a little bit on what I see every day. People are worried. People are uncertain, obviously, because of their career, and in high tech, especially all the layoffs and all of that happened recently. So we can, with your words and your view of things, your lens are very positive. It's very rare, very unique. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining today, and thank you.
Anytime. I would love to continue. Yeah,
Yes, I will
just
do
reach
that.
out.
Thank you so much. I'll do that. Thank you, everybody. So I'll see you in a few days, maybe a week, because it's a weekly event. But I will be on the other side of the Atlantic when I'll see you next week, and it will be a little bit of a different microphone, different environment, but it will be hopefully interesting. And I will have some local people that I can see and offer the time to share with you. So thank you again, Paul, and be
Thank you.
well and enjoy your children and your family.
Thank you, Andre. Bye now.